Some nights change everything. For me, that night was a Tuesday in late September. The kind of evening where the air holds just a hint of autumn chill, where streetlights flicker on one by one, casting long shadows across empty sidewalks. Most people were home, settling into their routines, dinner, TV, maybe scrolling through their phones before bed. I should have been doing the same. Instead, I was walking into the Westbridge police precinct with a split lip, bruised ribs, and a heart full of fear I couldn't quite name. My name is Alex Morrison. I'm 26 years old, a graphic designer who moved to this mid-sized city 2 years ago for a fresh start. I'm gay, openly so, and for the most part I've been lucky. Sure, there were stares sometimes, the occasional muttered slur from a passing stranger, but nothing I couldn't handle. Nothing that made me feel unsafe. Until tonight. I pushed through the heavy glass doors of the precinct, the fluorescent lights inside harsh after the darkness of the street. The lobby was nearly empty, just a tired-looking woman at the front desk, typing away at her computer, and the faint sound of a radio crackling somewhere in the back. The woman looked up, her eyes widening slightly when she saw my face. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked, already reaching for the phone. I need to file a report," I managed, my voice rougher than I intended. My throat was tight, my hands trembling. I was attacked. Okay, she said gently. "Let me get an officer for you, just take a seat, all right?" I nodded, sinking into one of the plastic chairs along the wall. My whole body ached. The attack had happened less than an hour ago, just a few blocks from my apartment. I'd been walking home from a late dinner with a friend when three guys cornered me in an alley. They'd called me names, slurs I'd heard before but never with such venom. Then they'd shoved me, hit me, laughed as I tried to defend myself. I got away, barely, but the fear stayed with me, clinging like a second skin. Alex Morrison. I looked up and my breath caught. Standing in front of me was possibly the most striking man I'd ever seen. Tall, easily 6'2" with broad shoulders that filled out his police uniform perfectly, dark hair neatly trimmed with just a hint of stubble along his strong jawline. But it was his eyes that held me, deep brown, intense, searching. Eyes that seemed to see right through me. "I'm Officer Ethan Carter," he said, his voice low and steady. "I'm going to take your statement. Can you walk?" "Yeah," I whispered, standing slowly. Everything hurt, but I managed. He gestured toward a hallway. "Interview room 2, it's quieter there, more private." I followed him, hyper-aware of his presence beside me. He walked with quiet confidence, his hand resting casually near his belt. When we reached the interview room, he opened the door and stepped aside, letting me enter first. The room was small, just a table, 2 chairs, and a single window overlooking the parking lot. The walls were painted a dull beige, the kind of color meant to be neutral but somehow felt oppressive. And then as I stepped inside, I heard it. Click. The sound of the door locking. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. Slowly, I turned to face Officer Carter. He stood with his back to the door, his expression unreadable. Why did you lock the door?" I asked, adding how my voice shook. For a long moment, he didn't answer. He just looked at me, those dark eyes studying my face, my body, the bruises already forming along my arms. Then quietly he said, "Because I don't want anyone interrupting us." Panic surged through me. My mind raced, images of the attack flashing before my eyes. Was this some kind of trap? Was he? "Alex," he said gently, taking a small step forward, "I'm not going to hurt you." "Then why?" "Because what happened to you tonight?" He paused, his jaw tightening. "It's not just a simple assault, and I need to make sure we do this right. That means privacy, that means no interruptions, that means I can focus entirely on you." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. I studied him, searching for any sign of deception, but all I saw was genuine concern. "Sit down," he said softly, "please." Slowly, I lowered myself into one of the chairs. He took the seat across from me, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Tell me what happened," he said. So I did. I told him about the attack, about the 3 men who'd cornered me. I described their faces, their voices, the things they'd said. I told him how they'd laughed, how powerless I'd felt, how I'd managed to escape only because someone's car alarm had gone off nearby, startling them. Officer Carter Ethan listened without interrupting. He took notes, but his focus never left me. And as I spoke, I realized something strange. I felt safe, safer than I had in hours, maybe safer than I'd felt in years. You said they used slurs, Ethan said quietly when I finished, specifically anti-gay slurs. Yes. Then this is a hate crime, and I'm going to make damn sure we treat it as such. Something in his voice, the controlled anger, the determination, made my chest tighten. Why do you care so much? I asked before I could stop myself. He looked up, meeting my eyes. For a moment I saw something flicker across his face, pain, maybe, or memory. Because I know what it's like, he said simply. What do you mean? He hesitated, then leaned back in his chair, his gaze dropping to the table. I'm gay, Alex, and 10 years ago I was attacked too. The confession hung in the air between us, heavy and raw. I started, but he shook his head. I was 19, still closeted, terrified. He laughed bitterly. I never reported it, never told anyone, and for years I carried that fear with me. It's part of why I became a cop, so I could help people like us, people who deserve justice but are too scared to ask for it. I stared at him, my heart pounding for an entirely different reason now. I locked the door, he continued, his voice softer, because I wanted you to feel safe. Because I didn't want you to worry about someone walking in and overhearing something you weren't ready to share. Because I wanted you to know that, in this room, you matter. Tears pricked at my eyes. I blinked them back, but one escaped, trailing down my cheek. Hey, Ethan said gently. He reached across the table, his hand hovering near mine. It's okay, you're okay. I nodded, unable to speak. And then, without thinking, I placed my hand over his. His skin was warm, his fingers strong. He didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his hand over, lacing his fingers with mine. You're not alone, he whispered. In that moment, sitting in a locked interview room with a stranger who somehow felt like anything but, I believed him. We stayed like that for what felt like hours but was probably only a few minutes. His hand in mine, the silence stretching between us, not awkward but strangely comforting. Finally, Ethan cleared his throat and gently pulled his hand back. I immediately missed the warmth. I need to finish your statement, he said, his voice professional again but with a lingering softness. And then I'll make sure you get home safely. You don't have to. I want to, he interrupted. Besides, it's protocol. Hate crime victims often face retaliation. Right, protocol, of course. But as we continued, him asking questions, me answering, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was about more than just procedure. The way his eyes lingered on me, the way his voice softened whenever I described something particularly painful, the way he seemed to care deeply about every detail. Do you live alone? He asked. Yeah, small apartment a few blocks from here. Is there anyone you can call, someone who can stay with you tonight? I thought of my best friend Maya, but she was out of town for work. My family lived 3 states away, and honestly I hadn't told them about being attacked. They worried enough as it was. No, I admitted. I'll be okay though, I'm used to being alone. Something flickered in his expression, sadness maybe or recognition. All right, he said finally, but I'm driving you home and I'm checking your apartment to make sure it's secure. Ethan. Non-negotiable, Alex. The use of my first name sent a shiver through me, not fear, something else entirely. 20 minutes later we were in his patrol car. The night had deepened, the streets almost deserted. Ethan drove in silence, occasionally glancing over at me. Can I ask you something? I said quietly. Anything. Earlier you said you never reported your attack. Do you regret it? He was quiet for a long moment, his hands tight on the steering wheel. Every day, he admitted, not just for me but for whoever else they might have hurt, but I was scared, Alex, scared of being outed, scared of not being believed. Scared of making it worse. Fear is a powerful thing. You seem fearless now. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not, I'm just better at hiding it. When we reached my apartment building, he parked and got out, opening my door before I could protest. Together, we climbed the stairs to my 3rd-floor unit. I unlocked the door and he stepped inside first, his hand instinctively going to his weapon. Stay here, he said. I watched as he moved through my small apartment, checking the bedroom, the bathroom, even the closets. It should have felt invasive, but instead it felt protective. All clear, he said, returning to the living room. Lock your doors and windows, and here. He pulled out a business card, scribbling something on the back before handing it to me. That's my personal cell. If you need anything, call me, day or night. I stared at the card, my fingers brushing over his handwriting. Thank you, I whispered, for everything. He stepped closer, so close I could smell his cologne, something woodsy and warm. His eyes searched mine, and for a heartbeat I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he reached up, his fingers ghosting over the bruise on my cheek. You deserve better than what happened tonight, he said softly. You deserve safety, respect, love. My breath hitched. Ethan. Get some rest, he said, stepping back. I'll be in touch about the case. And then he was gone, leaving me standing in my apartment, my heart racing, his card clutched in my hand. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept replaying everything, his voice, his touch, the way he'd looked at me. And I wondered if maybe the worst night of my life had just become the beginning of something extraordinary. 3 days passed. 3 days of jumping at every sound, of checking my phone obsessively, of running my fingers over Ethan's business card until the edges were soft and worn. 3 days of wondering if I'd imagined the connection between us. On the 4th day, my phone rang, unknown number. Hello, I answered hesitantly. Alex, it's Ethan. My heart leaped. Hey. How are you doing? His voice was professional, but I detected something underneath, genuine concern. Better, still sore but better. Good, listen, I have some updates on your case. Can you come down to the precinct, or I can come to you if that's easier? The thought of seeing him again made my pulse quicken. I can come down when? Are you free now? Yeah, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Alex, he said before I could hang up. Yes. A pause. I'm glad you're okay. Those 4 words stayed with me the entire drive. When I arrived at the precinct, the woman at the front desk, whose name tag read Diane, smiled knowingly. Officer Carter said to send you straight back when you arrived, room 2. The same room, the same locked door. I knocked and immediately heard his voice, come in. He was standing by the window, his back to me, silhouetted against the afternoon light. When he turned, my breath caught. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, his uniform slightly rumpled but still devastatingly handsome. Alex, he said, and something in the way he said my name made my knees weak. Thanks for coming. Of course. He gestured to the chair. Sit, please. As I sat, he moved to the door. Click, locked again. This time I didn't panic. This time I understood. So, he began, taking his seat across from me. We've made significant progress. We identified 2 of your attackers from security footage near the scene. We're working on the 3rd. That's amazing. We take hate crimes seriously here, Alex, especially me. His jaw tightened. They'll be arrested within the next 24 hours. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by fear. Will I have to testify? Eventually, yes, but I'll be with you every step of the way, I promise. The weight of that promise settled between us. There's something else, he said, his voice dropping. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I've been thinking about you constantly. My heart stopped. Ethan. I know it's inappropriate. You're a victim in one of my cases. There are rules, protocols, ethical boundaries. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. But I can't stop thinking about you, about what happened in this room, about how your hand felt in mine. I've been thinking about you too, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, his eyes intense. Yeah. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, he stood and walked around the table. He stopped in front of me, so close I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. This is a terrible idea, he said softly. Probably. I could get in serious trouble. I know. But I really want to kiss you right now. My breath caught, so why don't you? He leaned down, his hand cupping my cheek, and pressed his lips to mine. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, questioning, but when I reached up, threading my fingers through his hair, it deepened. His other hand found my waist, pulling me to my feet, pressing me against him. He tasted like coffee and mint and something uniquely him. His body was solid against mine, all hard muscle and controlled strength. When his tongue brushed against my lower lip, I opened for him, a soft sound escaping my throat. He groaned, the vibration rumbling through his chest. His hands slid down to my hips, gripping almost desperately as if I might disappear if he let go. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. He started. Yeah, I agreed. He pulled back slightly, his thumb tracing my jaw. I want to take you out on a real date, but I need to close your case first. I need to do this right. How long will that take? A few weeks, maybe. Once the arrests are made and the initial paperwork is filed, I can hand it off to another detective. And then I'm taking you to dinner, and then I'm walking you home, and then, he smiled, something boyish and hopeful lighting up his features. We'll see where it goes. I smiled back, feeling lighter than I had in days. I'd like that. In the meantime, he said, his voice dropping to something darker, we need to be careful. If anyone finds out I kissed you while you're still involved in an active case. I understand. But as he walked me out of the precinct, his hand brushing against mine in a gesture so subtle anyone watching would have missed it, I wondered how we were possibly going to keep our distance. The next 2 weeks were torture. Ethan called almost daily with updates on the case. Each conversation started professional details about arrests, evidence, court dates, but they always ended with something more. Soft confessions whispered when he was sure no one was listening, stolen moments where we talked about everything and nothing. I learned that he loved old movies, that he ran 5 miles every morning, that his parents had disowned him when he came out at 21. He learned that I was terrified of thunderstorms, that I secretly wrote poetry, that I'd never been in love. Never, he asked one night, his voice husky over the phone. Never. Well, he said quietly, maybe that's about to change. My heart hadn't stopped racing since. He also texted, brief messages that made me smile like an idiot. Thinking about you. Case update, they pled guilty, should be wrapped up by Friday. Counting down the days until I can take you out properly. On Tuesday, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. When I opened the door, he looked around quickly, then pulled me inside and kissed me breathless against the wall. I'm sorry, he gasped when we broke apart. I know I said we'd wait, but I needed to see you. Don't apologize, I murmured, pulling him back for another kiss. We didn't go further than kissing that night. He had too much integrity for that, but we spent hours on my couch, wrapped around each other, talking and touching and learning. Tell me something you've never told anyone, I said, my head resting on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. He was quiet for a long time, then I'm scared. Of what? Of screwing this up, of hurting you, of losing you before we even really begin. I lifted my head to look at him. You won't. How do you know? Because I'm scared too, and I think when two people are brave enough to be scared together, that's when something real happens. He kissed my forehead, his arms tightening around me. You're pretty wise for a 26-year-old graphic designer. I laughed. I have my moments. When he left that night, he paused at the door. Friday, the case will be officially closed, and then Saturday night I'm taking you to dinner. I'll be ready. Alex, he looked back at me, something vulnerable in his expression. I'm falling for you, hard. I stepped forward, pressing one last kiss to his lips. Good, because I'm already there. Chapter 5, the first real date. Saturday arrived with perfect autumn weather, crisp air, clear skies, leaves painted in shades of gold and crimson. I spent an embarrassing amount of time getting ready, changing outfits 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a fitted navy sweater that Maya had once said made my eyes pop. Ethan picked me up at 7. When I opened the door, he stood there in civilian clothes, dark slacks, a gray button-down that hugged his frame perfectly, and a leather jacket that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine. You look incredible, he said, his eyes roaming over me with an intensity that made me blush. So do you. He held out his hand, ready. I took it, our fingers lacing together naturally, ready. He took me to a small Italian restaurant on the outskirts of town, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths, candles in wine bottles, and a menu written in looping cursive on a chalkboard. It was intimate, romantic, perfect. Over pasta and wine, we talked like we'd known each other for years. He told me about his job, about the cases that haunted him, about why he stayed despite the long hours and emotional toll. I told him about my art, about my dreams of one day opening my own design studio, about the loneliness of moving to a new city without knowing anyone. You know people now, he said, his foot brushing against mine under the table. You know me. Is that enough? He reached across, taking my hand. I hope so, because you're kind of it for me, Alex. Kind of. He grinned. Okay, completely, you're completely it for me. After dinner, we walked through a nearby park, the path lit by old-fashioned lampposts. Ethan kept his arm around my shoulders, pulling me close against the chill. Can I tell you something? He said quietly. Anything. When you walked into the precinct that night, bruised and scared and still so damn brave, something in me recognized something in you, like I'd been waiting my whole life to meet you. I stopped walking, turning to face him. Ethan. I know it sounds crazy, it's only been a few weeks, but I meant what I said. I'm falling for you. No, I've already fallen, and I think I've been falling since the moment you put your hand in mine. Tears pricked at my eyes. I love you, I whispered. His expression softened, something like wonder crossing his features. Say that again. I love you. He kissed me then, deep and slow and sweet. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you too, he murmured. God, I love you too. We stood there, wrapped in each other, the rest of the world fading away, and for the first time since the attack I felt whole, safe, home. Come back to my place, he asked. Yes. Ethan's apartment was everything I'd imagined and nothing like I expected. Clean, minimalist, with dark furniture and exposed brick walls. But it was the details that caught my attention: framed photographs of what I assumed were friends, a worn paperback on the coffee table, a guitar propped in the corner. You play? I asked, gesturing to the guitar. Used to, haven't in years. He shrugged off his jacket, hanging it by the door. Would you like some wine, coffee? Wine sounds good. As he moved to the kitchen, I wandered around the living room, taking it all in. This was where he lived, where he relaxed, where he was just Ethan, not Officer Carter. Here, he said, returning with 2 glasses of red wine. He handed me one, his fingers brushing mine. Thank you. We sat on the couch, close but not quite touching. The air between us felt charged, electric with possibility. Are you nervous? He asked softly. A little. Are you? Terrified, he admitted with a small laugh. I haven't. It's been a while since I've been with anyone, and I've never felt like this before. Like what? He set down his wine and turned to face me fully. Like I want to know everything about you, like I want to protect you and challenge you and make you laugh, like I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. My breath hitched. Ethan. I know it's intense, I know it's fast, but I also know that sometimes when something's right you just know. I set down my own glass and moved closer, my hand finding his cheek. I know too. He kissed me, soft and searching, his hands sliding into my hair. I leaned into him, my body molding against his, and he groaned low in his throat. Alex, he murmured against my lips, if you want to stop. I don't want to stop. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, searching for any hesitation. Whatever he saw there satisfied him, because he kissed me again, deeper this time, more insistent. His hands roamed my back, pulling me closer until I was practically in his lap. I could feel the heat of his body through our clothes, the controlled strength in his muscles, the rapid beat of his heart. Bedroom, he whispered. Yes. He led me down a short hallway to his room. It was simple, a large bed with navy sheets, a dresser, a window overlooking the city lights. He turned on a bedside lamp, casting everything in a warm, golden glow. You're beautiful, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I need you to know that, you're absolutely beautiful. I stepped forward, my hands finding the buttons of his shirt. So are you. He helped me remove his shirt, revealing a chest I'd only imagined, defined muscles, smooth skin, a small scar near his collarbone. I traced it with my finger. What's this from? Line of Duty, happened a few years back. He caught my hand, bringing it to his lips. I'm okay. I'm glad. He tugged at the hem of my sweater and I lifted my arms, letting him pull it off. His eyes darkened as they roamed over me, taking in every detail. Perfect, he murmured. The rest of our clothes came off slowly, reverently. Each new inch of revealed skin was met with kisses, touches, whispered words. By the time we tumbled onto his bed, we were both trembling with need and emotion. "I love you," he said again, his body covering mine, his weight a comforting pressure. "I love you so much." "Show me," I whispered. And he did. In the soft lamplight we learned each other. His touch was gentle but sure, his kisses trailing paths of fire across my skin. Every caress spoke of care, of desire, of something deeper than just physical need. He took his time, learning what made me gasp, what made me arch into his touch, what made me whisper his name like a prayer. And I learned him in return, the sensitive spot behind his ear, the way his breath hitched when I touched him just so, the vulnerability in his eyes when he looked at me. When we finally came together, it was with a sense of rightness that took my breath away. This wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, a melding of two souls who'd found each other in the most unexpected way. "I've got you," he murmured, his forehead pressed to mine. "I've got you, Alex." And I believed him. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his arms wrapped around me, my head on his chest. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my back, and I'd never felt so content, so safe, so loved. "Stay," he whispered, "stay the night, stay forever." I lifted my head to look at him. Forever. Too soon. No, I kissed his jaw, his chin, his lips. Not soon enough. He smiled, something bright and beautiful and utterly unguarded. "I meant it, you know, every word. I love you, and I know it's fast, I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but sometimes you just know," I finished. "Yeah. Then I'll stay." We fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, the city lights casting patterns on the walls, our hearts beating in sync. I woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I was disoriented. This wasn't my bed, my room. Then I remembered. "Ethan." I smiled, stretching languidly in his sheets, feeling deliciously sore in the best possible way. "Morning, beautiful." I looked up to find him standing in the doorway, wearing only sleep pants, holding 2 mugs of coffee. His hair was mussed, his expression soft and content. "Morning," I said, "is one of those for me." "Both are if you want." He crossed the room, handing me a mug before sliding back into bed beside me. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years." He kissed my temple. "Me too." We spent the morning in bed, not making love again, just being, talking, laughing, learning more about each other. He told me about his dreams of maybe one day opening his own private security firm. I told him about my fear of failure, of never being good enough. "You're more than good enough," he said fiercely. "You're extraordinary." "You're biased." "Maybe, but I'm also right." Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Where are you? I've been calling." I'd completely forgotten she was supposed to come by this morning. "I need to go," I said reluctantly. "My best friend is probably having a panic attack." "I'll drive you." "You don't have to." "I want to." On the drive back to my apartment, his hand found mine on the console. "So," he said casually, "are we doing this officially?" "Doing what?" "This, us boyfriends." My heart soared. "Is that what you want?" He pulled up in front of my building and turned to face me fully. "I want everything with you, Alex, all of it, the good days and the bad days and every day in between. I want to introduce you to my friends, take you to department dinners, wake up next to you. I want the whole damn thing." "Then yes," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Let's do this officially." He kissed me, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you." "I love you too." 1 year later, almost to the day, I stood in front of the Westbridge police precinct. The building looked the same, but everything about my life had changed. Ethan squeezed my hand. "You ready?" "Yeah, I'm ready." Today, we were speaking at a community event about hate crimes and LGBTQ plus safety. It was terrifying and exhilarating and important, but more than that, it was healing. My attackers had been convicted. The trial had been difficult, but Ethan had been there every step of the way, just like he'd promised. And in the aftermath, we'd both found purpose, using our story to help others, to advocate for change. "I'm proud of you," Ethan murmured as we walked inside. "So damn proud. I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." Inside, we were greeted by familiar faces: Diane from the front desk, other officers who'd worked on my case, community members who'd shown up to support us. And in the front row, Maya sat beaming, giving me an enthusiastic thumbs up. As I stood at the podium, Ethan beside me, I looked out at the crowd and felt something I never thought I'd feel that night I walked through these doors bruised and scared. Hope. A year ago, I began, I walked into this building thinking my life was over. I'd been attacked, violated, left feeling powerless and afraid. I glanced at Ethan, who gave me an encouraging nod. But something unexpected happened. Behind a locked door in an interview room meant for questioning, I found not just justice, I found love. I found someone who saw me not as a victim but as a survivor. Someone who reminded me that even in our darkest moments, we're worthy of protection, respect, and love. Ethan's eyes glistened with tears. Our story isn't typical. It started with tragedy and fear, but it became something beautiful because we chose to be brave, we chose to be vulnerable, we chose to believe that love could heal even the deepest wounds. I took a breath, feeling the weight and wonder of the past year. So to anyone out there who's scared, who's hurting, who thinks they'll never be whole again, you will. It might not happen the way you expect. It might come from the most unlikely places. But if you're brave enough to keep going, to keep hopping, to keep believing in the possibility of love, you'll find it. The crowd erupted in applause. Ethan pulled me into his arms, whispering, "That was perfect, you're perfect." Afterward, as we mingled with attendees, a young man approached us nervously. He couldn't have been more than 20, with tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly. I was attacked 6 months ago. I haven't told anyone, but listening to you, I think I'm ready to file a report." Ethan immediately went into officer mode, giving the young man his card, offering resources. But before the man left, he looked at us, really looked at us, and said, "You give me hope that maybe there's a happy ending waiting for me too." As Ethan and I drove home that evening, the sun setting in shades of pink and gold, I thought about happy endings, about how they aren't always perfect or easy, about how they sometimes start with locked doors and frightened hearts, about how love, real love, can transform even the worst nights into the beginning of something extraordinary. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, his thumb rubbing circles on my hand. "About how lucky I am." "Luck has nothing to do with it." He brought my hand to his lips, kissing my knuckles. "We chose this, we chose each other, and I'd choose you 1,000 times over. Even if it meant locking me in an interview room," I teased. He laughed, that full, genuine laugh I'd come to love so much, especially then. We pulled up to our apartment. Yes, our apartment now. 3 months ago, he'd asked me to move in, and I'd said yes without hesitation. It was home now, truly home, filled with both our things, our memories, our life together. As we walked inside, his arm around my waist, I looked back one last time at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, someone was scared, someone was hurting. Someone was wondering if they'd ever feel whole again. And I wanted them to know, you will. It might take time, it might take courage, but if you're brave enough to walk through that door, to file that report, to believe in the possibility of love, your life can change. Mine certainly did. Because I went to file a report, and the officer locked the door. And behind that locked door, I didn't just find justice. I found forever.